I'm going to liken this program to Wisconsin, talking about the Utah Utes. I often watch them and look at the personnel and look at how good they are up front defensively along the defensive front and what kind of a ground game they have. And I think if they just had a playmaker or two on the outside or a top level quarterback that could win those couple games that they're not winning every year. But it seems like the Utah formula obviously works for Kyle Whittingham. Joe Williams was a back that I enjoyed watching and took the 5 weeks off, came back. I think it's a pretty remarkable story that you can be just kind of that out of football and just lose touch with it and not want to play and then come back and he hit UCLA for like 330 on the ground. Amazing season for Joe Williams. Ran hard against Indiana. They barely won that bowl game against the Hoosiers. Really good effort by the IU Hoosiers in that game. But your thoughts about Utah? And we can throw in Colorado as well. We've made it this far through the South Division. We're just now getting to the champion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Utah. Utah lost 4 games in 2016 by a total of 19 points. I mean, you could make an argument that this team could be a contender for 2017. I don't see it, and I'll tell you why. Let's look at the losses on offense. You mentioned Joe Williams. Well, again, to lead that team at rushing, like you mentioned, after almost quitting football with 1,400 yards is phenomenal, and he became a fifth-round draft pick in the NFL draft. So, I mean, credit to him for sticking with it. But you look at the loss of Garrett Bowles. This was an offense last year that really predicated running the football, averaged 214 yards on the ground. But in order for Utah to take the next step, they need production out of Troy Williams. Very inconsistent last year, only completed 53% of his passes. And the lack of speed on the outside, I agree with you, is the reason why they haven't been an elite team in the Pac-12. You look at the defensive side of the ball, they lose Hunter Dimmick, who led that team with 14 and a half sacks. That's going to be a big loss now for that defensive front seven, even though they're a blue-collar type of team that makes up for those losses. You look at Nate Orchard a few years ago, they made up for that lack of production and continue to produce, but they have a brutal schedule, in my opinion. They play BYU, they play Stanford, they play Washington State, they play USC in the Coliseum. Those are not going to be easy games, and when you look at their schedule overall, unfortunately, I picked them 7-5 because of their lack of ability to stretch teams vertically. If they prove me wrong after week 4, maybe I'll change my approach, but I think they're 7-5 for the season. I look at Colorado. I mean, they have Shane Montez coming back, 59% completion percentage. They have Philip Lindsay coming back. I mean, Shea Fields is back. They have playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, and I love what Mike McIntyre is doing. But you look at the defensive losses now. They lose Witherspoon. They lose Thompson. They lose Iwicki. I mean, those are huge losses from that secondary. Here's the problem, too. They held opposing offenses to 31% completion percentage in third down, and the main reason why was that group of playmakers that could play man-to-man coverage, which allowed them to blitz and utilize blitz formations to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I think they're second behind USC, but I don't think you'll see the same type of production from that secondary that you did last year, and I think they're in the area of 8-4 for 2017.
Yeah, it was an exceptional defensive secondary for the Buffs, but we got to see in the Alamo Bowl that even good secondary play can get exposed. James Washington had a field day with Mason Rudolph because they couldn't get to Rudolph, and Washington was lighting guys up down the field in that game. And I thought the Buffs, credit them, and Colorado fans may not be real happy with me. I thought that they were a bit exposed after a tremendous season, could not compete with Washington or Oklahoma State in those ball games, and were just manhandled. They just looked a step slow. We're just beaten by superior football teams by wide margins those last 2 games of the year. So before we move on to the North Division preview here, Joe, I want to let everyone know this is Joe Lisi from GoForThe2.com. You got to join him there. Also on Twitter at GoForThe2. He's got a college football preview out for 2017. So look it up on Amazon. And if somebody checks out Amazon, Joe, what would they want to put in the search field?
Yeah, they type in GoForThe2.com, Power 5 college football preview. It's on Amazon now. It gives a unique look about the strengths and weaknesses of each team in 2016, and we'll see if those trends continue in week number 1 or 2 of the college football season, because ultimately, Mark, that's where we see where the team struggled or where they were successful, and if that depth entering 2017 follows through to make up for those losses, or more importantly, continue with that strength. That's what I look for. So it gives a unique look at where the teams were strong and weak in 2016.